Paul Nolte. He's the Senior Vice President Portfolio Manager at Kingsview Asset Management. He's joining us to help us take a look at the numbers and some of the financial products. Paul, let's begin with the housing starts, building permits this morning. Kind of muted reaction to them. Probably not the most closely watched number, but certainly something to keep an eye on. What are you seeing in terms of market reaction to?
Yeah, it has been very quiet. We saw the equity markets trade down just a little bit after the numbers came out. Bonds rallied just a little bit off of it, but again, kind of an imperceptible move. Both numbers came in below expectations. We expect that to reverse maybe a little bit here as we're seeing interest rates in general over the last couple months come down, mortgage rates especially. And you generally will see housing track mortgage rates. As mortgage rates come down, you'll generally see the housing market pick up some. Lumber prices have reversed their recent gains. They're back to lows that we saw a couple months ago. So again, we think the housing market is in okay shape. We'd like to see more building going on. There still is an inventory problem. Part of the reason why we're seeing prices up. So one of the things that we'll be looking at is home sales coming up later on next week.
So, Paul, talk to me. I want to quickly jump across the big pond and talk about some of the price activity we've been seeing in the UK and the British pound into multi-year lows. We talked about some of the inflation data this morning, still missing the mark for the most part. There's been a lot going on there in terms of some of the unease, some of the uncertainty that's been playing out there. Talk to us about the latest as far as some of the Brexit woes or, again, some of the economic data in terms of what you think basically is weighing on the pound here at this point.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, we got to bring up that five-letter word Brexit again,
okay.
and that's really what we're, or the six-letter word. We're actually, I mean, it's still ongoing. The chances of now more of a hard Brexit are starting to rise. Some of the economic data in England actually wasn't too terribly bad. Some of the housing data looked pretty good over there. Sales data looked okay. But again, you're right. It's, you know, they're still struggling. You're looking at the new administration maybe taking a turn away from what Theresa May put together. So again, it's going to get kicked down the road a little bit. The chances of maybe a hard Brexit are rising. And part of the reason why you're seeing the flight out of the pound and into other currencies, there's still some big issues in England, and they're not likely to end anytime soon. So again, I think that currency is going to be under pressure for a while, and as you mentioned, now making multi-year lows here.
So, Paul, let's talk about, you mentioned some of the UK numbers. I touched on them as well in terms of how they missed expectations or were a little bit below expectations, but let's talk a little bit about the EU. The inflation data looked like it inched up some, but still well below where the ECB would like it to be.
Yeah, and you know, and that's the problem around the world. That's been an ongoing issue, and we've been discussing that for the, you know, last 10 years as we look back at interest rates and their correlation to inflation. In the last 10 years, that's really broken down. So the thought that, you know, it's a teeter-totter, if I push interest rates down, inflation's going to go up, is broken at this point. And I think it's got a lot of other issues going on here. So I think the central bank's looking to cut rates in order to boost inflation. I think here is a fallacy. And again, if we don't have the demand going on around the world, and some of that demand, I think, has actually been cut by lower interest rates. Remember, there's information in lower interest rates, and it's generally not good. Yeah. You know, the reason you're cutting interest rates are not because things are great.
Right.
So as a result, consumers generally pull back a little bit. And that's why I think part of the reason why we're seeing inflation numbers generally on the lower side.
So, Paul, let's talk, because it's not just the eco data that's attracting attention out of Europe. It looks like we have a replacement for Juncker as EC president.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be the same old song.
Okay.
She's not going to move too much from Draghi. She's a very dovish person when it comes to monetary policy. She's been talking that way with the IMF. She's still got to go through the process of getting accepted into the position, but I think that's a fait accompli at this point. But again, her politics, or her monetary policy certainly, as she's demonstrated with the IMF, very dovish. So she's going to be very Draghi-like going forward and trying to keep rates very low in the EU.
Paul, let's talk retail sales. Now that they're behind us and some of the economic data, is the focus now going to be on leading indicators? And, well, next week I saw some information on GDP, durable goods coming on. I mean, what do you have your eyes set on right now in terms of eco data?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to be a lot of the data that's going to be due this month. A lot of the data we're going to be looking at is going to be next month.
Okay.
This month, the Fed's going to cut rates. There's nothing in the data that's going to change that. But I think when we start looking at the employment and inflation data in August and September, I think that will determine whether this is a one and done.
Noted.
Or we look for more.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, the next couple of weeks, those tend to be very quiet numbers when it comes to market reaction, but we'll be looking at the bigger numbers in the next couple months.
That being the case, do you expect rates to kind of stay range bound, or can we continue to get this lift that we've seen off the lows?
Yeah, that's the interesting point that we're discussing internally, and and certainly the markets are wrestling with it here. Should we be cutting rates with the unemployment rate near all-time lows? Should we be cutting rates when you're still seeing jobs growth in a market at all-time highs? We've never had a rate cut when the unemployment rate's been below 4%. So I don't know if this is truly an insurance cut because of the global situation, or if the Fed is pandering to the equity markets because the equity markets are demanding it.
Yeah,
and again, that's why we're looking at the next couple months to see if it's a one and done here.
Yeah, to try and determine if this is a singular event, trying to roll back that Dees hike, or if they're going to start to take a more accommodative path towards rates lower. Paul, really appreciate you joining us here for a look at the currencies, some of the numbers that just came out, and a little bit of market reaction to them. That's Paul Nolte, the Senior Vice President and Portfolio Manager at Kingsview Asset Management.